Hey, it's evening. I don't even know if I'm going to share this video. I've been thinking about doing this off and on. And to be honest, I am trying to stay informed, but stay off the news at the same time because it's, for me, it's just upsetting. I mean, there's some great things going on, and I try to, as anyone who knows the content that I try to share things that are lighter and funny, and baking. But for me, as a Black woman, as a Black mother, as a Black daughter, as a Black wife, I don't get to sit this out, and I don't get to stay quiet. And I have heard from some people, just in general, that I'm tired of talking about race. I'm tired of talking about racism. If we always have to make this distinction, and I'm saying this on my page because for anyone who knows me and anyone who knows my heart, you know that we're exhausted. I mean, and when I say we, I mean people of color. I don't want to talk about race. I don't want to talk about racism. I don't want to make a distinction. But especially as a Black mom, I've had to have that conversation. I had to have a conversation about Jordan and when he was driving and saying, everybody wears hoodies, all nationalities, all races, they wear hoodies. I said, you do not get the luxury of wearing a hoodie. And we're people, and I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart, that when people get tired of hearing it, I'll just say privilege. I'll just say privilege. If you don't want to hear that because you get tired of the way it's been, maybe a better way to phrase it is that it's my burden. There's a certain radar that you have when somebody can make a distinction about you just because of the color of your skin. When you walk into a room and somebody already has a story about your life solely based on the color of your skin. When people make assumptions that, I'll give you a prime example. I didn't play basketball in high school. I think honestly, I probably fought against it because I was tall and I was Black. So I think there was an assumption that I would get asked that all the time, like, do you play basketball? And mainly because of my height, I understand that. But maybe I didn't make the effort to be a really strong player just because. But at my baccalaureate, there were a number of parents that I got into St. James Madison. They called it like a sleeper school where it was more out-of-state students. It was more in-state students that went there. So out-of-state students, it was a smaller pool that they could draw from. And I probably had 5 parents come up to me and they're like, "Oh, I heard you got into James Madison. So are you playing basketball?" Like, didn't know him from Adam. Just made the assumption. And it's those kinds of things that continue. And I think, honestly, until we're willing to be honest with ourselves, to say that maybe there is a slight bias, sometimes. Maybe, I'll walk into a room and they already, almost like I'm, who do you know here? Because I'm used to, in most of my life, being one of the few Black people in a room or in an event, and very comfortable with it. That's been my life. And so when it's reversed, people are really not comfortable with that because I've had to play to that role. But to say that, listening to the story, and I was kind of upset to hearing about the young the 1-year-old, I don't know if you guys watch it again, trying to stay off the news, but that he was shot and killed because I guess the police thought that the mother had stolen diapers. And I did kind of like a drill down, and I know some people are like, well, and I've seen that before, like, okay, if they're asking for something, why don't you just show the receipt? And that would be logical. I understand that. And I would probably say that to Jordan, just if he's in those situations, so that he comes out there alive. This is my reality. This is when, he's out of my house and traveling. I worry if people are going to be as kind to him, not because of who he is, but because of the color of his skin. And I'm not there to protect him. And that's a scary thing. It's a reality that you live with. And it just kind of comes it comes with the territory. I had something else that I was going to say, but I lost that track and getting a little emotional. But I just hope that we can get to the point where we see that there is a problem. She shouldn't have had to show her receipt unless it's a store where you have to show your receipt. And yes, maybe, you know, she had showed her receipt, maybe her child would be alive, but you get exhausted. You get fatigued with this Wisconsin battle. And I'm kind of insulated a little bit more out here in the suburbs, but it's a different feel when I go into areas that I don't know. And I'll give you an example. And I was delivering flowers for friends when I was 2 friends around here. And one of my friends, she jokingly, she said, well, you know, if they're not there, just, you know, if the door's open, just like put it right there and I'll send them a message. And, you know, I said, I'm Black in this world. Like, there's no scenario where I would ever just open the door to somebody's house. I mean, I think most people wouldn't do that in general, but I certainly, as a Black woman, as a Black person, I would not think to do that at all. I said, the next thing I know, I'm watching the news and there's a story about, you know, a Black woman who entered somebody's house. I'm like, oh, that's weird. That looks familiar. So I just hope we can get to a point where we can be willing to have the conversation where you don't have to understand it for it to be true. Like, again, I had a friend in high school and kind of lost contact, but when I told her that the salesperson was following me, every time I turned around, it was like I had a new best friend. I went with 3 friends, and it was as if I had a new best friend. I would hold something up, and she'd comment on it, or she was nice enough about it. But and then she, you know, pointed to the sales rack for me, and I had experienced that before. I experienced it at Sims. Somebody's following me, and I stopped the guy and I said, just so you know, there's a woman who's not pregnant, looks like she's pregnant, and she's stealing shirts and she's putting them up her shirt, making it look like she's pregnant. So I said, while you're following me, there's actually somebody that's stealing, and that's out here. You know, it's not, I think it makes people uncomfortable if I were to tell stories like, oh no, I'm sure, you know, I'm sure you're being paranoid, which is what my friend said. She's like, I'm sure she's not following. You're probably just being like sensitive. And if I could go back in time, because that was high school, I would say I'd appreciate that if I told you something, you don't make me feel like I'm crazy. You don't, you know, invalidate my feelings, because this is my reality, that I've lived that way. You didn't move into a nice neighborhood like Chesterbrook, and we lived in a nice neighborhood in Illinois, similar to Chesterbrook. And when we were moving out, the neighbor came across, he had a dog named George, German Shepherd, which we loved. And he just, very matter of fact, he didn't even skip a beat when he said it, but he said, oh, you know, we're going to miss you guys when you leave. You know, when you first moved in here and we had a meeting about you. There wasn't an HOA, I don't think. Or I don't know that. I was younger. Those weren't my things to know. But the fact that he would just say that they had a meeting about the Black family that's moving into this, and that makes people uncomfortable, because they, you know, people who know me, my friend, they don't want to hear that that's something that we had to experience, but we did. And so I ask everyone that if somebody's telling you something, when you're listening to these stories, and we all have our own opinion and perspective on what should be, but understand, if that woman, again, I don't know the full story. I haven't gotten on to do the deep dive, but I do know that a 1-year-old was killed. She was killed by a police officer, and because she was trying to got in her car and drove, and they shot. So anyway, and if I have any part of that wrong, I apologize. I just wanted to say this while it's on my heart. But it gets hard if you've never experienced that, where you're getting a slightly different treatment from somebody else. And when I tell you, I don't go around wearing this. God knows my parents have stories beyond, you know, that would just scare you. My father certainly being in the military and being chased down by a truck full of people with like pitchforks and stuff. And that's a story for another book. But, you know, we have our stories, but you don't wear this. We don't wear this with anger. It's sadness. It's heavy. It's a weight that you carry every day. It's knowing that if I'm going to a door, you should by the way, anyone, if they're knocking on somebody's door, you never stand right on the door. I never understood that. Like, stand back so I can see you. But I'm more aware of that as a person of color, that I need to step back. I need you to know that I'm not a threat, kind of thing. So when people are feeling a certain way, you don't have to understand it for that to be their truth, for that to be their lived experience. And I think if we can get to a point where you might be tired of talking about it, you might be tired of hearing it, other people are tired of experiencing that and having to make adjustments, but you do what you have to do. So if we can meet somewhere in the middle where we're just willing to hear the conversation and the uncomfortable truths, maybe we can start healing. Maybe we can start getting past. Maybe we can start asking questions or being curious, right? Just be curious. Ask a question. If you don't know, just ask. Say, I'm just, I just want to know for it to be helpful. I think most people will embrace that. And I don't know. I'm rambling. I'm frustrated. I'm emotional. But I was gonna film this a while ago because something else happened, and I don't think I said what I wanted to say, but I just wanted to capture this while I was feeling this in the moment. And I hope you receive it from the heart. I really do. I hope you understand that, coming from a place of love, a place of nurturing, a place of learning and getting back together. But if we can just, whether it's race or something else, if somebody tells you something, you don't have to understand it for that to be their lived experience. That's all I'm saying. I think when people say that, it's because they're uncomfortable with what the person is saying. But sometimes you need to sit in that discomfort to grow and to learn. And that's it.